Fraud is scary. That's why I have the maybe not so beautiful picture of a spider. But rather, I'm going to reassure you here, because we are going to find controls against these frauds, starting by the control environment. In a control environment, and you can use these in future audits for fraud, just to understand if your organization is ticking all the boxes here. So a code of conduct, tick. Code of ethics, or other anti-fraud policies. An anti-bribery and corruption policy or procedure could be one of them. Whistleblower hotlines. Someone who is independent enough to receive fraud or potential fraud cases and to listen to them on the phone. I have a little question for you here. Can internal audit be the whistleblower hotline? Because de facto, it often is. And I've had people come to me about suspected frauds. Can internal audit be the whistleblower hotline? Well, yes, but internal audit can be the department responsible for receiving whistleblower complaints. But that means you are acting as first line of defense in the model that we saw before. Since you are acting as first line of defense, someone would need to verify your work over the whistleblowing hotline. It's possible. That means you could be the internal contact for whistleblowing incidents. But in that case, you might want to have an external party, say a consultant hired by the board, come in and just review as a third line of defense internal audit itself on the whistleblowing hotline. Guidelines on hiring and promotions. So is there a proper procedure for promotions? Is there a proper procedure for hiring? Board and management oversight, especially board oversight and understanding of the fraud risks in the organization, an investigation of issues and correction of violations. I would say an enormous red flag in an organization might be that fraud occurred, but then nothing happened. Nothing happened. No actions were taken against the perpetrators of the fraud. And I've actually seen that. I have seen that. And that is a definite flag for internal audit. An organization that sees frauds occur, that has internal audit going to audit committee and board level, and then nothing, absolutely nothing happening, even though everyone is aware of the problem. That would be a very unethical organization. But we get to fraud risk assessment. So, internal auditors assess fraud risk. It is much better if there are other people in the organization assessing fraud risks as well. Compliance, risk management, others. Ensure the proper segregation of duties. So think of cases where it would be a great problem if someone is performing a task and validating it as well. So typical example is payments. The person who sets up the payment isn't the one validating it. Accounting might set up the payment, but the validation is at management level. Think of other examples. It might be a problem if your compliance department is reporting to the same person in management as your business operations, because compliance looks at the business operations. But if they both report to the same person in management, well, it could be a segregation of duties problem, which is often why you'd have, the business operations on one side, and then the control functions reporting to a different person in management. Control activities. So we want to have effective anti-fraud controls in the organization. An internal audit would judge indeed whether they are in place and effective. A certification process is a process where we have looked at something and confirmed, at least to our good assurance, that we are okay with it. So, for instance, a second line of defense control by compliance over anti-money laundering would be to verify the work performed by the teams in contact with clients. So they would verify the control performed by the client-facing sales department as second line of defense, and they would certify, put their stamp of approval that we've looked into this, we give reasonable assurance that this is okay. Information and communication. Communication of anti-fraud policies and procedures. So it's very nice to have a beautiful, code of ethics, code of conduct. But if it's given to no one, what's the point? What's the point? There has to be a proper communication of the policies and procedures. There has to be open help over ethical questions. So people can have dilemmas. People can not exactly know whether something is a potential fraud or not. If I go to a country with non-equivalent controls to the EU, and I'm at the passport office, and I'm asked to pay a fee. Is this fee technically a bribe? Or is this fee a normal transaction fee required to enter that country? So there can be ethical conundrums. Channels of communication, open communication, the whistleblowing hotline, but others that you could talk to receive answers on your ethical dilemmas. And anti-fraud training. So training by HR, say, on the code of ethics, training by compliance on the anti-money laundering procedure, training by IT on the information security procedure. And finally, monitoring, such as ongoing assessments of anti-fraud practices. So here it's looking at all the rest. And use of technology against fraud is something that you should consider.